What's happening, YouTube? On today's video, we're going to be adjusting the action on my Gibson SG, specifically messing with the truss rod. If you look at my string action on the 12th fret, it's really high. I'll show you a measurement in just a second. And I have already adjusted the bridge as low as it will possibly go, and I still have some pretty high string action to the point where it makes trying to solo up here above the 12th fret pretty difficult. Because you can see there's a lot of give, and if you're trying to do any fast playing up here, it's going to make it even more difficult. So I have this handy little tool here which tells us how we can actually measure our string height just by placing it across the frets. It even tells you for what sort of guitar, what sort of action is appropriate. So for the low E string, according to this thing, it shouldn't be higher than 0.59. Well, if I put this right on the 12th fret, you can see that 0.5 is well below where my string actually is. In fact, if I keep going here, I'm right around 0.11, 0.12, which is way too high. All right, so first thing I'm gonna do here is take my handy dandy peg winder, or in this case, unwinder, and just loosen the tension on my strings here a little bit. Not to the point of being all the way off, but just enough so that this isn't totally locked here, and you'll see why in just a moment. Okay, so the reason why we've gone ahead and loosened those strings up is because obviously when you tighten your strings, it's going to put tension on the neck, which is going to pull it usually upwards. And so the first thing we want to do in adjusting this is take the tension off of the neck of the guitar. And then we're going to take off this cover, which will give us access to the truss rod. Okay, and there's my truss rod. It's accessible. Now, in order to adjust a truss rod, it's very simple. You're just going to go either to the right or to the left, depending on what you need to do. In my case, my neck is bowed up too far, so I want to adjust it to the right, which will hopefully pull it down a little bit and help to flatten it out. It has a pretty big curvature to it. I'd also like to be able to raise the bridge too. Now, depending on how severe this is, your curvature one way or another, you still want to go kind of slow with the adjustment of the truss rod, because remember, you're working with wood. This isn't metal. And if you just crank this thing too far around, there's potential you could actually crack the neck or even snap it. SGs and Les Pauls are kind of notorious for that. SGs more so. Well, my adjustment nut is covered in so much lacquer that I can't actually get this tool on there. I have to kind of chip it off. You can see it. It's coming off there. All right, let me clean that and then we'll do this. Okay, now that I got all that overspray off of there, nice quality control Gibson, I can actually fit my little adjustment rod tool here, and I'm going to give it about a quarter turn. Nothing crazy, just enough to go from one set of strings to the other. That was super loose. It actually feels like the truss rod isn't even being used, so I guess that's good. That means I got a lot of wiggle room here. Now I'm going to let this sit. Because like we said, we're working with wood, so wood has to move and slowly with response to the tension that's now on it from that metal rod. So I'm going to give it like a half hour, and then I'm going to come back, we'll retune the strings, put all the tension back in the neck, and then hopefully we'll be where we need to be, or we can keep adjusting. So I've given this thing over an hour actually to acclimate to the truss rod being tightened. So now we're going to tune it up real quick. I'm not going to put the cap on the truss rod cover, just in case I have to keep adjusting this. We'll tune up and we'll see where the action is here at the 12th fret. So with our capo in the 1st fret, we're going to come up here to the 12th fret and now remeasure, hopefully being closer to where we need to be. Unfortunately, I get a better shot of that. Fortunately, I'm still not close to 0.05. I'm still at about 0.10. You can see that there. So we're going to take this off and detune and readjust again. So they say the low E should be 5/64ths, the high E should be 4/64ths. So going over to inches here now. It looks like I'm perfectly there at 5. I'm right there at 4. Fantastic. I did bump the saddle up just a little bit here in order to make that difference happen. You can see the lower side of the guitar is a little higher than the other side, which is still more or less touching the guitar itself. Okay, so I have not put my truss rod cover back on yet just because I don't want to jinx anything, but we're going to take it through some tones here. I'm going to start with a clean channel. So I always find it funny when people do gear reviews or whatever, they're testing a guitar and they're playing with full like heavy metal distortion to the point where it sounds like you're playing like Super Smash Brothers or something. Feels pretty good, not too high, not too low. This is also a good time to check for intonation or any sort of string buzzing. And so far I don't hear any. And my intonation, at least in major scale, sounds correct. So that's good. I do want to hear it up here because this is where I was kind of having issues. Just a little. That's much better. Much better action there. It's not too high. Before I felt like I had to fret like this just to make it happen. Let's hear a distorted tone now. That sounds pretty good. It's an SG, so why not some AC/DC? Last but not least, do not forget, put your truss rod cover back on. Well, thank you all so much for watching. Hopefully this helped you to also adjust the action on your guitar. Remember, the truss rod is kind of a last resort. I don't like to mess with that unless every other adjustment has kind of failed. So hopefully you're here for educational purposes only, but maybe you're like me and it finally came to that and you had to mess with the truss rod. Either way, thank you all for watching this long. Comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one.